How are you doing, Lou?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome to the EO Wonder podcast.
Thanks. This is exciting. I am a big fan of this podcast.
Fantastic. But maybe we can just start by just having you share your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I can do that. My business is Coolperx. We started in 2018. I actually was a nurse prior to working in the promotional products industry. And my husband had been in the industry for about 15 years at the time, and he had started his own business. He was working mostly with wine and spirits and creating really cool display pieces and inventing things creatively in his brain. But it was during a time where there was a lot of small trinkety items that were starting to hit the market again, like fidget spinners, for example. And I was spending my days working as a nurse, really talking about, people's well-being and how they were feeling and how they were connecting with other people in their lives. And then to come home and hear about, a large company wanting to connect and create these intimate relationships with their employees using things like fidget spinners. I just said, oh no, there's got to be something here that we can actually do that is aligned with, my own personal belief system on taking care of people, and also the idea that we can be leaders in how to build that longevity in career and that satisfaction and that connection with purpose. And so that's how the business was started. I can't
Okay,
hear
so
you.
let's back up. Okay,
Okay.
so sorry, my daughter is practicing oboe in the other room, so hopefully this, you won't be able to pick this up. But okay, so Lou, you were a nurse
Yeah.
and then started your own business.
Yeah.
What was that like to go from being a nurse to starting the business? I know that you sort of given it like, but what was that like? Like, what was the last day of work as a nurse? And what was it like your first day in your company?
I was really prepared for that transition, but it didn't actually fully show itself. The entrepreneur journey didn't fully reveal itself for a little while after I had started, because it was such a big learning curve, how to manage your own marketing, your own sales, going through that process of, we were doing everything. So I immediately was working with my husband. He is my co-founder. And, it was just the two of us. We did bring on somebody really quickly, really quickly, but we were doing all of the things. And it really was that a continuation almost of a career, because everything is dictated for you. You have your clients to take care of, you have your orders to manage, you have all the steps in between. But as soon as we got to the point where we needed to scale, which came very quickly, then it became this overwhelming transition. And we were just talking about it recently, that it's kind of like learning how to water ski, where at the beginning you're drowning, you're underwater, your face is like you're covered in water, and you're trying your hardest to hold on and get up. And even when you do get on top of the water, you still have to navigate your skis and figure out how to maintain momentum without flying all over the place and falling off. And, and so it just, that journey is something that I couldn't have taken had I not ended up in my relationship. I didn't come from a background where my parents were together. I didn't, it was a very unstable background. We moved around the country a lot. My mom married a soldier, so we moved around the world a lot. And then finding that stability in my relationship really gave me that confidence to say, okay, well, I don't have to worry anymore about this. I don't have to worry anymore about people leaving, me having to move, any of this, I do have that stability, and I can start looking for my next stage or my next step and the next part of my evolution. And I think that's something that, is a new learning experience for me, is really what being in a relationship is. I mean, we've been married for 5 years now, but
Okay, wait, so let's so that everyone can sort of
yeah.
understand the story. How old were you, when you started your business, and were you already married, or were you an entrepreneur first? Or maybe you can just tell us a little bit about that, because I believe that relationships is so important. I'm also married to my husband, and he's also joined the companies, but it was only after I've had my businesses for, like, what, 17 years did he join,
Mm,
So
yeah.
what was that like for you? You're a nurse. Were you already in a relationship with him? Were you already married?
So was, we didn't get together until, or maybe married until I was 33. And we, trying to think of even the timeline, it all feels like a blur. I think we had just gotten married when, no, so we got married in 2016, so 2018, when we started the business. So I didn't start the business until after we were married, but I knew that at least we had been together
Yeah.
for
And
a
you have
little
kids,
while when
right?
I started.
You have kids.
We have one, yeah, one daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I started my business when I already was in a relationship. I was with my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time, and he was the one who really encouraged me. So a lot of times when people ask me, like, "Are you an entrepreneur?" Like, I was an entrepreneur first, then I became a wife, then I became a mom. So you
yeah,
were a wife first. Well, you were a nurse first, then you became a wife, and then you started your business, became an
yeah,
entrepreneur, and then you became
yeah.
a mom. Okay, got it. All right, cool. Yeah. So you said that you were prepared. A lot of times when people say that they're really prepared from going from full time, the 9 to 5, the career, and you said you were prepared. What was that like? Because most people are not prepared. What do you mean by you were prepared to make the jump?
Well, the jump was something that fit really well with my skill set and my desire to, like, methodology of working, right? The way that my brain functions. So I have a lot of energy and moving around and constantly creating things and creating new ideas and wanting to test the new ideas. Working as a nurse was fantastic because I did get to express a lot of that, right? Inpatient care, you're really adapting to what that patient needs and using your skill set to creatively come up with a solution. And it was a fantastic career for me. However, being in my relationship and having a child, I then started realizing that there was no amount of caregiving that I can give another person that my daughter already didn't need from me. And so there was a little bit of fulfillment when it came to that caregiver need. But when I did make that transition, what I realized is I wanted to flex some muscles that I had that I didn't know even were careers. Had I grew up in a situation where I understood that there was a marketing career, that there was something in communications, I can't even think of any of the jobs like art director, creative directors, any kinds of those types of jobs would have been really, really appealing to me as a
How did
child. And
you become a nurse then? Is it because someone told you to be a nurse?
maybe in my life, pretty much all of the women were assistants, dental assistants,
Oh,
nursing assistants, and there were a lot of medical careers. And I love science, and I think a lot of the part of science that I really love is the creative aspect of it. You do get to test so many theories, and it's a learning and growing type of field. And so I moved into nursing because that's what I knew. I knew that I in life I could be a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, like these very traditional, a teacher, even a bartender, server, any of these very traditional small town careers.
what small
But
town did you grow up in? I know you said you moved around because your parents were in the military.
yeah, yeah, military. I would say I grew up in North Carolina. That's where I ended up going to high school. So that is where really career started focusing, or like that became a focus of mine. But before that, I lived in Japan, which was fantastic. But
Do you
in
speak
the
Japanese?
no, I used to be able to read and write it.
Wow. Ohayou
Um,
gozaimasu. I don't speak Japanese. Nice.
I was te I was teaching my daughter all of the Japanese greetings the other day because she has a good friend who really loves anime.
Oh, my daughter loves
And
anime too.
yeah, it's becoming a really neat trend that all the little kids are getting into right now.
I have an anime playlist
Yeah.
on my Spotify. Anyway, so you became a nurse because all the examples around you were caregivers.
Yeah, that was the top that I thought that I could be, right? Like that was the best. I mean, I thought about going into like, other careers in my head in some sort of fantasy that, like maybe one day in another lifetime I would do this if I had the opportunity. But, coming into this experience where I know that all of these careers existed, and I've had conversations with so many other entrepreneurial women, and, a couple of them who grew up in small towns, and one of them, she got out and went to Dartmouth, and she ended up getting a career working in marketing with Uber. And I was like, how did you end up even finding this? And she said, by luck. Like this was entirely by luck. Somebody just happened to cross paths with somebody, and, her parents were both immigrants. And it was kind of that situation that, fortune to her, like ended up going through this path. And, mine took a little bit different path. And I'm so very grateful for the path that it took. I really did enjoy being a nurse, and I enjoyed all of it.
How
But I'm
how long
I'm
were you a nurse?
fascinated by this. A little over 10 years.
So you were a nurse for 10 years, and then you became an entrepreneur. How long have
Hmm.
you been an entrepreneur now?
3.5 years.
Wow, and you're already an EO, like, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, to everyone who's listening, EO is an entrepreneur's organization. You have to have at least $1,000,000 in revenue to join. So, congratulations, 3 years, that is awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, it's been quite the journey.
so now you said that you're prepared because you naturally have the skill sets. You naturally have the skill sets for marketing, for coming up with new ideas, and so that's really helped you. So can you share with us some of the challenges? You said you were talking about like trying to water ski. Entrepreneurship is like trying to not drown while you're water skiing. Can you share specifically like, what are some challenges that entrepreneurs face to our audience?
Well, one of the ones that I'm learning right now is in hiring and in choosing the people that are right for your business, for my business, and then holding them accountable while letting them do their job. So eh, I started my business with the intention that I was going to open this up as a remote organization from the beginning, but pre-pandemic, before this even was an idea to have, remote work life type of thing. So, because of my family's military journey, my mom ended up without a career, almost 50 when I was graduating high school and getting a divorce, having to start completely over. And I just remember thinking of all of these military spouses who travel the world supporting our country, and their best options are really like these MLM programs, Avon, Mary Kay, that
Maybe
type
you
of
could tell
job.
people, because it's global audience, what does
Mm-hmm.
MLM stand for?
I don't actually remember. It's some kind of like marketing.
Multi-level marketing.
Multi-level, yes, thank you. So, you know, when you find this group of people who are on a team and you're selling, and you have somebody you're responsible to as sort of an entrepreneur themselves in selling so much makeup or baskets or Tupperware or whatever it is, um, then you report to them and they make a portion of your sales as their own revenue. And you get the opportunity to build out your own sales group too. So that's the multi-level marketing piece of this. And then take a portion of your team's sales as well. That's a really hard industry to make a lot of money in as a full-time mother, a full-time military spouse, overseas trying to navigate the world of a whole different country. And what I thought was, why not build out my business to be able to provide jobs for these people who may or may not be able to find traditional work life successful? And navigating that has been a, a really interesting journey. The roles that I think that people are going to be people parents especially who have to coordinate and navigate the world of several different people don't always function well in a coordinator role in my business because they are pulled back and forth between their competing priorities. And so that's something that I'm really learning right now. And what I've found is that for me, this is almost like a life or death feeling because the stake of my business is in the hands of somebody who has competing priorities. And so I'm constantly on this knife's edge of whether I go into full micromanaging mode or how do I hire for this and keep making this a community effort and building that community effort. And it's been such a challenge, and the emotionality around it is beyond words. It just
Have you read, Scaling Up?
I have, yeah.
Not Vern Harnish's book, the one the
Oh,
who did, Priceline.
I
So
did not.
so
No.
one of the tips he gives in that is, like, to have in order for you to have control, you need to have internal control. So there's a difference between control, which is, like, you're just like, "Oh my god, like,
Mhm.
I need to control every single bit of it," to having internal control so that you're notified when something goes wrong. Have you done anything like that? Like, just curious, you know? I'm sure you have.
Uh, we have to an extent. So at the beginning, I was attempting to both work on my business and in my business, right? And so one of the things that we did was create scorecards, which is a very common thing in EO. So I'm sure that many people on this podcast have actually heard of that. But the scorecards helped a little bit. What was challenging about that is that I didn't have the consistency in my schedule to be able to manage and make sure that each of these employees were able to update their scorecards, update me. The scorecards were, we were going through and reviewing them on a regular basis. It would happen, I would say, for a few weeks, and then I would not be able to manage it for a few weeks. And then, we try and bring scorecards back, and the inconsistency was really something that gave too much space to my team to get complacent, to not think that all of the priorities on the scorecards or all of the tasks on the scorecards were priorities to them or metrics maybe. And so then they'd pick and choose, and they'd always choose the ones that were the easiest to do. You can hop on a phone call, you 3 phone calls with vendors while you're folding laundry. That's a fantastic one. I need that. Please do that. Like that is very helpful for my business. And if it's something that you want to multitask like that, I do that constantly. I want to make that available to you if that's the way you want to work. However, still like sitting down and having meetings and entering in things correctly and having somebody check and review is still very important, and that takes some dedicated time to sit in front of the computer. And that is what I'm finding is the most challenging, these competing priorities, those dedicated times where somebody can't multitask. So
So, just to share what I do in EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, anyone who's listening, is we have this thing called Gestalt where we share from experience. And so when we went from, to a completely remote staff, I installed Hub Staff. Mm.
Mm,
I don't know if you have Hub Staff, but that's all my friends who did remote work, they have had these tools where they basically are checking to see when you're on the computer, and, like, that's the only time, so when they're actually on the computer is when they actually get paid, like, and it takes
mhm,
screenshots of their screen, which is really kind of crazy, and I really didn't wanna do that, but when I didn't wanna do that because, you know, I just didn't wanna micromanage that way, but I gotta tell you,
right.
that is what changed our life this past year because now we can so if we there's, like, some trust issues, with someone who's just like, "Well, I don't really know if you really are putting in 40 hours of work," it actually shows you, you know? And there's some
Yeah.
ways too where you manually can put it, so anyway,
Yeah, interesting. I'll
has
have to look
helped.
into that.
That has helped, because we had to go and get that software installed. But yeah, that's hard. So they actually have to be on the computer to work to
So yeah, a lot of these positions do. I mean, I have sales positions where, going out and showing items to people or actually talking through some of their own marketing strategies is really important. So not being on the computer during those times is what the job requires. But the jobs that I have the hardest time with are the most important, those keystone roles that are order manager and coordinator type of roles where they're communicating the sale between the vendor and the client. And if any piece of that gets missed, the whole order can unravel. And we've lost clients that way. We've actually had a couple of huge shipping errors. We've had a $60,000 shipping error. We've had a $30,000 shipping error, and we've had a couple of $3,000-4,000 shipping errors. And I just think one of those could have broken us. And I cannot get over the fact that we're still around after some of these. And I'm so grateful for clients who really believe in what we're doing and the fact that what we're doing is completely different than everybody else in our industry. And it takes a little bit of trust and a priority and value fit for somebody to be working with us. And so I'm so grateful to our clients for that.
yeah. I completely agree because in the beginning of my businesses, that happened all the time. We specialize. My first business is we help, with website design and marketing, and you can just imagine like all the issues that go wrong. Like because right, there's so many different moving parts. There's a design
Hmm.
developer, there's a project manager, someone does SEO, and so like literally, like I have everything like step by step, and then there's like a check and balance system too. So I don't know if that's something that could happen. Like I hate making the same mistake twice, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, I try to think, like, what happened here? Like, why did that website go out like that, And so now, like, literally I have checklists upon checklists. So, like, even little things like the fav icon is missing, or they don't have the functional footer, or they didn't put up the sitemap, and it's constantly, missing, like, and I'll go back and I'll trying to train them. But I feel you, like so many things
Yeah.
go, wrong, have you read I think that there's this thing called, like, the Toyota Way? There's, like, this you probably know 'cause you lived in Japan,
Hmm.
and how basically
Yeah.
stop production. Do you
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Before it moves on.
Yeah. When you were thinking about it, I was thinking about a couple of experiences that I have had with making the same mistake twice, which is horrible, right? The first time you make it, even the second time a mistake is made and a similar mistake, it is okay, we've made this mistake twice. We have gone through and tested out what we have learned the first time. Now we'll never make that mistake again. And to put in all of the controls and the internal, what we were talking about, the internal controls that will help make sure that this doesn't happen. And then for it to happen a third time will just, I mean, it'll bring me to tears, right? Like, I mean, at that point, it's
Can you
how do I go on? How do we,
can
pardon me?
can you talk specifically of, like, what happened? Or
So a lot of this is we work with large wineries who create their marketing programs a year in advance. The smart ones do, at least. Getting everybody to work a year in advance is challenging when it comes to large organizations and budgets and all of the aspects of coordination. But the clients that we send items to warehouses to get stored often are third-party warehouses. So we have to work within the parameters of both the client and the third-party warehouse. Well, the promotional products industry is a very large industry that really is, I say, is based on complacency. It's let me slap a logo on it, throw it to somebody, like, you know, however it lands, it lands. And we do things so differently. Our clients are, stay with us. We don't have client attrition. We're very, very conscientious of their experience. And so, working with our vendors, we have to have these very explicit called out agreements that they are going to operate according to the way we operate. So, they're going to, properly inform us when a shipment is supposed to go out so that we can inform the warehouse and our client so that they can arrange for delivery. We have to label every box a certain way, and then that has to be verified. And then when it gets to the warehouse, it has to look a certain way. It has to be easily rung up, on a like QR code type of thing. And then it goes into a certain specific spot in a warehouse and gets pulled out, whenever they need it. So maybe 6, 9 months later. Well, there have been several times where our vendors will not adhere to these rules because we're so different. They just, oh, we're just going to put it out the door the way we do everybody else's. And so we said, okay, well, the first time that happened and it arrives at the warehouse without notification, my client gets a phone call from the warehouse because we're not allowed to directly communicate with the warehouse because sometimes that'll muddle things up. So then the warehouse reaches out to my client reaches back out to us and says, I can't believe this happened. We had this discussion, why would this happen? So then we find out the cause of it and we find a solution together as a team.
what
Okay,
was
well, we're really the manufacturer, their sales team doesn't always communicate with the fulfillment team. So even if something is said via phone or email, if it's not on the purchase order, also, it doesn't necessarily happen. Their sales team can guarantee it all day long, but unless their fulfillment team knows about it, it's not going to happen. So then we start adjusting our purchase orders, and we make sure that the purchase orders now come with a second page with an actual description of what is supposed to happen, what it's supposed to look like going out the door, so that we have all of these safeguards. Well, then the second time a mistake that happened, the well, okay, so this one's happened a couple a couple of times. We've had vendors absolutely disregard it, look at it, not do it, ship it out. And we don't really have control over that. The only control we have is to no longer use that manufacturer, which, if they're making great products, that's really unfortunate because now it puts a burden on us to go find a new manufacturer and, build this relationship that we could have done and given this other manufacturer our business, right? But in our case, making the mistake of not attaching the instructions to the purchase order. And after going through all of this and having an employee not attach the purchase or not attach the instructions to the purchase order is like, okay, they knew that they made that mistake. You know, you could see it on their face. Their stomach was, it just completely dropped. Like they knew that mistake was a horrible mistake and they're never going to do it again. Months go by, it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Well, then because of, you know, all of the competing priorities, that becomes something that they don't think about again. And it happens again. And they send out another purchase order without the instruction page. And it really has become one of those patterns. And so to respond to that, what I've done is started going in, okay, every quarter we do a continuing education, kind of like we did as nurses. You know, you get your
Like a
right
nurse,
advanced life support,
yeah.
yeah, certification and continuing ed. And so I do that regularly with my team. And so when it fails, even with all of these things happening, I know then it's the person. For a long time, I really did believe that it was me. I believed that I'm not communicating well enough. I'm not being a good leader because I'm distracted by all of the business aspects and then being a human being. But then realizing that people are usually they can be better than this, right? Like I've had employees that are so amazing. They said, "Oh, well, actually let's streamline this a little bit better or let's never make that mistake again." And they never do. Whereas these other ones that make these mistakes over and over and you know, maybe it's another year before they make the same mistake, but they do make the same mistake. It's taken me until probably this last, you know, couple of months to realize it isn't me. You know, all of these doubts that I've had on me from, you know, being the oldest child and having to take care of my siblings and you know all of these things growing up, I believed that maybe I just need to try harder, maybe I need to do better. You know, things that we get taught as women, like it's your responsibility to make it all look pretty and to make it look perfect and to show up all perfect. And I felt like I was failing at that. And because I felt like I was failing at that, I felt like, okay, I owed it to all of these employees to make sure that it isn't me. And it wasn't until just recently that I realized that I have created a really amazing workplace for people. And I have created a place for people to come and feel respected and feel cared for as a person. And if that is not of value to you as a job, if you just want a job that you can punch a time clock because your priorities are somewhere else, then we don't belong together and we're both holding each other back. And so that is a lesson that I have, you know, learned and I may need to learn again. Hopefully not, but really being able to shed those insecurities of, is it me or is it you or is it just the situation? And moving past that is a good lesson.
Yeah, I certainly do believe that humans have different strengths and weaknesses. You know, like I wrote that book, Little Brown Book. And then as you were talking to me, I was thinking like, "Oh, I wonder what her archetype is." And so you're like the gem, the one who takes care of everyone, but you're also really organized and like a leader, So, but I think that you're absolutely right. There are people who are idealistic and they're like dreamers, and half the time they're like thinking about something else. But there are people who are like so like into the details. And so
Mhm.
perhaps like you could still have the best of both worlds. Or for me, when I find someone who's the best of both worlds for me, as sharing experience as EO, is like one of my project managers is like a graphic designer. And she's
Mhm.
also very just like you, like detailed oriented, like she knows how to multitask, and she's got a 3-year-old at home. And so she's
Mhm.
creative. So like maybe it's, finding that needle in the haystack for me. That's what happens with me where like when people like that join my organization, it just takes it to a whole different level.
Yeah,
I think you
yeah.
can have, yeah, I think you can hire people who are still, stay-at-home moms or whatever, or something,
Yeah.
'cause that's
Yeah,
the dream, right?
right. It's definitely just finding the right fit and finding the parallel path, parallel journey.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, someone wants to join. So, anyway, I'm gonna decline, but I wanted to ask a question. But,
Oh, cute.
anyway, so I feel you, man, people. People, people, people. Interviewed I don't know if you listened to the podcast I did with Kim Malik of Salt and Straw, the, ice cream
Oh,
one,
yeah, yeah.
and she has this one thing when I think Danny Deutsch, invested in her company, she's just like, "Hey, so what's your people plan?" She's like, "Oh, I have a people plan, like I, help them, I don't know, like train them," and he just like and as she was talking, she was just like, "Oh, okay, no, I don't have a people plan." Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, I definitely do, I have a handbook,
Yeah,
would onboard people." And he's like, "No, no, no. That's not a people plan." He's just like, "Because you are no better than the people that you have, because you want your freedom too." Like
you
eventually we don't wanna be in the day to day, like
no. Yeah, and I've responded in interesting ways. I've gone all the way from, getting really involved into solving the problems and then micromanaging, like, okay, you need to show me every step of the way how you're resolving this and how you're actually fulfilling these goals, to the opposite end of it where, like, okay, we've set it out together, I'm going to hand it off to you, you are now responsible for it. And there, what I did find is that replacing me as manager was one of the first best things that I have done, to be able to hire somebody who can actually keep us all moving along, strategize solutions, and push us further as an organization has been, really this lifesaver.
Yeah,
But people plans, that it is really interesting to think about. I also really had no, I mean, all high hopes, but no real planning, right? And we're just really at that spot in business where it's like, okay, in order to hit the next milestone, here are, the top three things that we need to look at, and people is high up on there.
yeah, yeah, we still need people, like
Mhm.
for us, for me, like I'll get involved only when like the project's like, I don't know, $2.5 million or something. Like it has to be big, for me to be involved. If it's like something small, I actually give them carte blanche, like, even like, I have a waxing salon in Honolulu, I don't know if you know that, but I give them, like, "You can solve this problem with up to $100." So if you wanna give them a
Mhm.
wax, if you wanna give them a free brow, like, just don't you don't have to contact me. The answer is yes. You can solve this with
Yeah.
$100. If you wanna send them a gift from Olive& and Coco, you can do that. So
Yeah.
but I can feel you because I'm just thinking, like, even if you tell them and then some kid is screaming and then they don't attach that instruction form, like, it's part of your checklist, like, what do you do, right? Like,
Right. Just a
like
and the thing is, I've set it up to where they don't need to do it right there. Pause, take care of your child,
yeah,
hug that screaming child,
yeah,
and then go back to it. Don't press send and then, like, rush off, because that never works out. I found a really great tool for my own household, which is a time timer. I hired somebody to come in and help me with organizing my office, something I'd never learned. I think she did my linen closet too.
wow,
It was fantastic when she came in and helped, because I bring in a lot of samples and learning how to know, like, these are the ones that are going out to clients, these are the ones that are waiting on photo shoots, that there's a and then these ones even need to get back to our manufacturers. um, there's a lot of moving parts, and so having somebody come in and help me organize was really, it was a fun experiment. I didn't carry it on as well as I should have. But so she came in and she brought this time timer. And what that is it looks like a clock up to 60 minutes, I believe. And you turn a dial and a red disc comes out. And as the time it so you can go up to 60 minutes. And as the time moves along, as you've gone into your 60 minutes, the red disc disappears a little bit. That time gets shorter and smaller. It's a really great remote tool. We put it on our desks and say, okay, well, for the next 25 minutes, we're not going to talk to anybody. We're only going to do this task. Well, I actually use it to communicate with my 10-year-old. So I will have a meeting. I will turn it to 30 minutes. I will put it on the corner of my desk, and she'll come past the door. She'll look at the timer and then go off. And then that'll happen a couple times. And if I'm late, my call is running late and the timer is done, it's free and clear, she will stand outside of my door and wait very patiently. And it's really empowered her to understand, okay, she's doing something else now. I can have her attention in just a little bit. The timer's off, but I know that my patience only has to be so short because I'm about to get her, regardless. And it's been a really, really good tool in my household. There are times where I do set it outside the door if I have more of a quiet call. And she's actually taken it and she started using it with her Barbies and just playing with different things. So when she's like doing their school lessons, because they play is all therapy for them, right? Like they get to reenact their real lives in doll form. And so when she was doing her remote learning during the pandemic, she would use this timer to know when she can go play, and then when she had to come back for her next lesson, or how long she had to do to practice this before she had to jump into one of her small groups online. And then it just became part of her play. And now she uses it, and the Barbies take turns, having their own time and going and playing. Even one of them I found in the bathtub, the Barbie little bathtub with a timer, like this is going to be my bath time.
Oh, cute. So this is Pomodoro, right? Is this
It
Pomodoro?
is. It's based. Um. I'm not sure how it was developed, but we use it as a Pomodoro. Yes. Hmm.
I would love to get that link of the actual timer. I'm sure everyone is
Yeah.
probably like, "I need that red timer, that Pomodoro effect." Yeah, like it's 25 minutes. Is it 25 minutes or is it but you can set it.
This one goes all the way up to 60 minutes.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna buy one.
Um, yeah. And it's funny because you can turn the timer, the noise, there's a little buzzer on it. And the it's loud enough to hear even with headphones on or something like that, but it's not an annoying beep. And so very rarely do I turn the timer off. But I do know that I have to be careful when I do turn the timer off, because unless I'm directly looking at that red
Yeah,
bar, sometimes
yeah,
I will end up in a task for 2 hours and I should have only been there for 45 minutes.
yeah. Well, you heard when this first started, right? And then you heard Alexa, like, with her timer. I use
Yeah.
Alexa.
Yeah.
That's what I do. So I'm just like so I know that the podcast, is going to happen. And by the way, I just want to just apologize for all the times that we had to reschedule. Thank you so much for being
Oh,
flexible.
no worries.
Like I think one time, like a whole bunch of our websites went down, and like and I was just like, "What happened?" Like one of our biggest
Yeah, no,
clients.
I get it.
So thank you so
I
much
get it.
for doing that. So I'd love for you to share some tips and tactics for people who are aspiring entrepreneurs. Uh, what advice would you give them?
Um, I I have found the most success really in bringing myself authentically to the business and to my clients. What we do is very niche, is really transformative for this industry. So, my business is selling promotional products and marketing merchandising to large organizations with forward facing sustainability missions. However, not everyone we work with has a forward facing sustainability mission. Sometimes their clients trying to work with like Microsoft, who has a mission of going climate negative by 2035. So trying to learn how to navigate working with companies, large organizations that have these forward-facing sustainability missions, and being in an industry that is highly toxic, highly wasteful, was something that really required me to stick to who I am, what I believe in, and it created a lot of very, very fast success, um, because really, who wants to be throwing away 79% of their marketing budget? That's the statistics. Is out of the $30 billion a year spent on branded merchandise, 21% is kept. The rest is either given away, meaning to Goodwill or a friend or something else, or thrown immediately into the landfill. Well, you do the math, that's $24 billion a year into the trash. And it's something that businesses shouldn't be engaging with. It's not something that's good for our planet, and it's certainly not good for employees who are really hoping to be seen and appreciated by their employers. These companies are the largest influencers of our lives. It's not the Instagram influencers, although we do buy quite a bit based on what we're advertised on Instagram. I am very guilty of that. I think 90% of my purchases anymore are Instagram purchases. But overall, we do expect all of our efforts and all of the heart that we put into what we do for a living to be appreciated by the people we're doing it for and with. And when companies don't show that in a very intentional way, we have things like high turnover, really low employee satisfaction rates. We have competition among employees. We hear the horror stories about, the parent who has a bad day at work and coming home and taking it out on their children and what that does to the community. And what my goal has always been is to set the example and to help train companies to create these environments in which people work and love to work and feel connected with and take care of the planet in the mix. And sticking to that has really allowed my company to grow because nobody questions that. Nobody questions whether or not I'm going to sell them something that is going to break in a few weeks or was made in a factory with child labor or slave labor, or in certain regions of China where there's genocide right now, and nobody questions that about what I'm giving them. So really sticking true to your niche, your value is so important, especially the way the world is moving. We're all starting to wake up. There's a lot of awareness happening, and especially with climate change. I mean, we in the Pacific Northwest just recently had, that 100 and some degree few days, and they're saying over 1 billion sea creatures were boiled to death, essentially, or cooked to death. In this time frame, these 3 days of heat, and like it's just something that we're starting to, as a society, realize the damage that we have done needs to be rectified. We can't keep faking that we have it all together. Like, we have extracted from our own country and created enough waste that we have to globalize it. We get our avocados from Mexico and send our trash to India, right? Like, we're not just a country, we are a planet. And everybody's waking up to that fact. And everybody is starting to see that something's needing to happen. So these companies that are starting to form based on environmental social governance, the ESG companies, they're going to have a leg up in the next, decade or two, that companies that have absolutely no environmental missions or aren't really taking care of the people in their organizations, that they're going to see.
Yeah, to think about that all our trash, some of those little things that we use for like 2 seconds ends up in the middle of the ocean, right? Someone has to take it and drag it, like, that is a lot of and then all when you open up fish and you see all the plastic that's inside, like, I was on the board of trustees of, 5 gyres, and that was I don't know if you know what a gyre is, but basically, there are these gyres that are happening in the ocean, and they were all getting polluted. And so I'm all for it, all for not wasting things, like I was thinking, there's so many cute things to buy, and like I've had this, you buy it once, right? I have this really cute mug that says, "Good morning, beautiful." Look,
No,
it says
yeah.
"Good morning, beautiful," but I'm always tempted to like, let me go buy another, there's so many cute like teacups and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I'll just use this one, even though it really is like totally like hammer right now. But like I totally agree with you, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, coffee mugs are an interesting thing. You can go overboard, right? But for the most part, they're not made out of materials that are toxic, right? Like if you get rid of that, somebody else can use it.
True,
Or even if it goes into a landfill, that is a natural material. That is
true,
ceramic.
true.
Um, and so I don't have as much guilt around buying stuff like that as I do other things. But what I found is that we we're not taught about recycling. We're not taught about um, what happens to our trash. It's just something that isn't communicated very well. I mean, you think that these t-shirts that we get at fun runs and then we give it to Goodwill, maybe they go to a homeless shelter. That was my chain of thought. Well, I followed the trail and found out what happens is they sit on the shelves at Goodwill. Goodwill, they're burdened to Goodwill because nobody wants to buy your 5-year-old fun run shirt. And then they, as an organization, have to make money. So they bale all the textiles, sell them by weight to a buyer, most likely in a country like India or another country, a developing country, who will buy them and then they'll burn them. So not only have you created a wasteful item that a lot of the paint on it, so the decoration, the logos on it are painted with a plastic material. They burden the system, yeah, and then they're shipped all the way across the world just to be set on fire, and just to emit all of that carbon. Um, and it's something that we need to really start talking about, is especially in the entrepreneurial world, because large organizations are really looking at this, like we're talking to Delta and Anheuser-Busch and all of these large organizations that are very like the quintessential organization in their industry, right? So these organizations, this is a huge focus of theirs. That trickle down effect means that as entrepreneurs, we're going to have to get on board with that as well. And we're going to have to find solutions for their problems. And, again, really feel like the key to my success was staying true to what we knew there, and to being able to provide a solution that was very functional for these companies and take some of that burden off of their shoulders.
I wonder if you can talk to EO about it as well too, because they've got a branded shop as well too, and we get a lot of tchotchkes from EO. I mean, a lot of the stuff is really good. One of our former presidents actually owned a promotional company too, and the stuff that he selected, I still use it today. And that's what you want.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway, thank you. I know that we're running out of time, but I just wanted to just thank you so much for sharing your purpose-driven company. And could you please just share with everyone the name of it and how they can get in touch with you or buy from you?
yeah. So we're Coolperx, and my website's coolperx.com, Coolperx.com. Social media, we're also Coolperx everywhere. and you can buy from us either just messaging us through our website or going to the shop page in our menu bar. It's easy as that.
Thank you so, so much again, and I look forward to, maybe having you on the podcast again to see, what you're up to in the next year or so. I think the world is changing, and hopefully for the better, and thank you so much for all your diligence and hard work and showing up as an incredible female entrepreneur for EO and for the world.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.